Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
When I took command 10 years ago, I saw myself as an explorer. I thought all the risks would be worth it. Because just beyond the next planet, just beyond the next star, there would be something magnificent, something noble. And now, Trip is dead, and I have to give a speech about how worthwhile it's all been.
Trip would be the first to say it was worthwhile.
Hibbity, 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 hop. Here we go. It's time to go. Is that our new start? Is that how we start the podcast now?
Yes.
We just get into it. We're like, hey guys. Whoa. Hey guys.
Let's maybe we should try not to do it.
Hey guys. This is the It's Got Star Trek podcast. Hey guys.
Hey everybody.
Am I doing it right?
No.
Let's be cool as ice.
All right. Yes, we will be cool as ice.
Objective mode.
All right. Oh my God. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
Hello. We got to get right into this. It's going to be a long one, folks.
This is quite a surprise.
I don't know. Maybe it'll be a short one. We'll
There's
see.
a lot to talk about here.
Yes.
It's quite an episode.
So we got to get through all the
Like
front
a
matter,
challenge.
all the chunky bits at the front of the podcast. So yes, you heard it here first. I mean, you heard it a couple minutes ago. This is
Several
the
minutes ago.
It's Got Star Trek podcast.
Maybe a little.
A lot.
It's a lot, dude.
It is a lot because we've done a lot of episodes
Oh shit.
It's a good sign.
of the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
I quite enjoy this.
I can tell you. Do you know why? Because do you know what number?
It's 200.
No, thank you.
15?
That's right, Jesse.
Oh, cool.
You
Right.
got it. You nailed it right on the head.
I really hate those episodes where
Thank
I'm
you.
like, isn't it like this one? And you're like, no, that was last week. And I'm like, oh.
You got it
I'm
right this
a
week, Jesse.
Senile old man.
No, you're all good.
I've got a hunch you're going to make it.
This week you're drifting through a period of lucidity, which is
Yes.
fantastic. It's always great when Jesse's periods of
the
lucidity
clarity.
line up with the recording of the podcast.
Yes.
So yes, this is the 215th
Not
episode
Good sign.
before or after.
of the It's Got Star Trek podcast. You got myself, Patrick, here. You got Jesse over there, who's lucid tonight, and
Completely lucid.
and then we have our silent partner, Dan, who is our silent co-host.
You know what I mean.
Don't worry.
Hologram.
Poetic justice.
This
Holograms.
This week, you probably know it already because you clicked on the title. Unless this came up in your automatic feed, I don't know. I guess that could happen. You probably know that this week we are discussing Star Trek Enterprise Season 4, Episode 22.
It's just barely
It's
an
the-
Enterprise.
it's been a
episode.
week.
It's the series finale.
It's been a week.
Series
It's-
finale.
It's sort of a weak TNG episode.
Yes. and
It's not really an Enterprise episode.
We'll get to all that. But yes, these are the voyages, ... Or alternatively, these are the voyages, ellipses. Whichever is your preferred way to do it. You need to include the ellipses, however.
Depends, you.
If you just say these are the voyages, that's not correct because that's not the official title of the episode. ... So that is what we will be discussing this week.
Medulla oblongata.
Last week I did have a game to end the. We don't have to play the game, but I kind of ended on the game, so we kind of need an answer. Right?
I'm down. Yeah. Let's do the game.
Can you get? This is a really.
The game.
This isn't a very good game.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So, folks who are new to the podcast, if you're just like decide to ramp up with episode 215, where we're discussing what is widely seen as one of the. Yes, Jesse, you can pour your drink. But what is
Coffee from a can.
what is widely seen as one of the poorer entries in the Star Trek canon If this is the episode you've decided to pick to first listen to the It's Got Star Trek podcast,
Beware.
there's a couple things you need to know. And one of them is, what were you doing, Dan?
A game?
Oh, yes, the game. One of them is that last week we did a different episode. Okay.
We did an episode on the Game Stars of Trescalon.
Oh, yeah. The game. No.
The Game Stars of Trescalon.
Okay. We did TOS's The Gamesters of Triskelion.
Triskelion.
And Dan had formulated, I believe, an audio game of some sort that we didn't have time to get to.
Because he's a gamester
Yes, because he is indeed a gamester.
of Smellion.
And this happens occasionally, so we can use a couple minutes here at the front to wrap up that loose end.
So
You won't need to have watched that episode necessarily.
So can you guess where I cut the sound?
I can be a
where
guesser.
I took the sound, I took a piece out, and I spliced it together.
Okay, that's the
Guest
goal
of
of
Splice
that's the
Skelly
goal
on.
of this game.
So because the quote was a certain length, and I cut down empty spaces to make it a shorter length.
Yes.
And so can you guess where I cut it?
Okay, yeah. So
you want me to
Dan,
be a guester of Splice Skillion.
just to clarify, Dan has taken an audio file. He's edited it in such a way.
I just said all this.
I know.
Oh no.
I know. This is just you reiterate
This is a recap.
Okay.
just to from a
It's
different
like those
perspective.
reality shows where they just keep playing clips from earlier in that episode.
Yes. There's a great sketch from That Mitchell and Webb look where it's a guy goes in, he's trying to buy a present for his aunt. It's called the Gift Shop sketch. I recommend everyone go to YouTube and look it up. That
YouTube.
Mitchell and Webb look, the Gift
Okay.
Shop sketch. And now we're going to do our version of that with Dan doing the game from last week with audio that he edited, and we're supposed to determine where the splice is.
Yes. Here we go.
We're not going anywhere till we have some information. Who are you? What is this place?
Till we have some information. That's where you edited it.
Wait. Let me, at the,
We're not going anywhere
Till you have some information.
Who are you? What is this place?
It's too, because the other part is too obvious.
wait, after or before?
Before.
Before. What do you say, Jesse?
What do you say, Jesse?
I'm not really sure. This is like from an episode that we last week.
We're not
I'm a
going
bit
anywhere
confused.
till we have some information. Who are you? What is this place?
So Dan, you may recall last week that Jesse was not in one of his periods of lucidity.
Yeah. Right.
So he may not be in a position to guess.
Okay.
But that's where I'm guessing, and I'm admitting it's not because I'm hearing something, it's because I'm guessing that the part that sounds like the obvious edit is not the edit, unless you're doing a super meta hilarious joke on me.
Well, you've used your wits to outsmart my game.
No, okay. Was I right?
You were sort of right.
Okay, all right.
In the actual answer, it's original.
We're not going anywhere till we have some information. Who are you? What is this place?
So you were right that the other one that when right before he says "Who are you?" that sounds like it's cut, but it's
Yeah,
not. And you
but
were
it's
right.
not.
But you were right that I cut the one before it, but I also cut the one after it. It was kind of
Gotcha.
like because I thought, and the reason I didn't do it is because the reason I didn't do it the other way. Originally, it was going to be like, guess where I didn't cut it. Guess at the spot I didn't cut, and that's
Okay.
kind of like a tricky game to play because there's an infinite amount of spots I could not have cut it. So instead I said
Game shows get tricky when there are infinite answers.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just said, exactly. So I just said, guess where I cut it, and I made it a trick question because I was banking on the fact that you were gonna pick the one between who are you before who are you and the one before, but you didn't. So you thwarted my game. Congratulations, you deserve a meatball.
Okay, I will get a meatball. You can provide me with a meatball post-podcast.
What kind of meat?
All right, let's keep things moving because we want to get to our discussion. Just a couple things before that. We do have a voicemail from our friend Isaac at Unplanned Trek.
It's a good sign.
Hey guys, it's Isaac here.
Hi, Isaac.
Long
He
time
can't hear
listener
you.
of the show,
it's
absolutely
recording.
loving it. And I hear you guys are after people recording things and sending them in, and that's probably asking for feedback. And because I'm a male and middle age, I feel like I can give my opinions even if they haven't been asked for. Great news. First of all, I'd like to say news em ups. They're really rad. The tagline makes it. Keep the tagline.
Yeah.
Second
Exactly.
thing is a question for Dan.
Thank you.
Really
you.
love the soundboard that you guys use or that you
Thank you.
use. And, I guess the other two can say that they use it too, but we all know whose soundboard it is, mate. Wondering if you've considered adding yourselves to the soundboard. So, you know, you guys go quite unhinged and some funny things have come out of your mouths.
One or two.
Maybe they could be things that are on your really, really long keyboard. I assume that, like, you've got a keyboard that's like a piano and each thing's labelled with a different sound. So
And
it
6
goes all
rows.
the way from the lowest note being Chief O'Brien all the way up to the highest one.
Chief
which is, I don't know,
O'Brien?
holograms or something like that. Anyway, of the show.
Well, I had no doubt about that.
Feel free not to use this and feel free to edit it if it's really shit. All right. And hey, how's Jeremy going this week?
Oh, yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah, people enjoyed Jeremy's audio recording from last week.
Holograms?
Nothing from him this week. Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you.
What do you think, Dan?
Hologram.
Should we add to
Thank
our?
you.
Should we add?
Thank you.
Audio clips of ourselves to the soundboard. I think that's not a half bad idea.
I like
Maybe
that.
a little.
I like it. I like that idea.
Yeah.
So
not a little. I like that
for a
lot.
little background, a little behind the scenes background. First of all, I too,
Thank you
Isaac,
for that wonderful voicemail.
I too dream of Dan, quite literally have had dreams of Dan having some excellent huge keyboard with each key mapped to something and then like buttons where he can like load up different profiles and
Can you
stuff
believe it?
and just have all this stuff. Dan, I mentioned that to Dan and he suggested to me that would be insane to try to memorize.
It's
Unless you had some digital magic keyboard where it would have like the file name on the
right,
key or something.
right. Because I have different ones each week, so to try to memorize, yes, it would be the most efficient. I'd be doing better with my beats a little bit. I'd have a little bit be more on time. I could play more simultaneous.
Better
stuff.
with your beats.
You know, the problem with my ability is it's limited by my equipment.
Better
You know,
with your beats.
That's what people who say when they have no.
But you know,
Better
the
with your
thing is,
beats.
I was reminded
when something's holding them back and they feel it's their equipment, it usually just means that they're holding themselves back.
Isaac reminded me that back in the day, in the olden days of the It's Got Star Trek podcast, we did used to play some audio clips that we recorded. Like we had this one. You remember that?
Yeah. Oh wow, yeah, that's an old one.
Oh yeah, right.
Jeez.
Corporations are cheap,
Yeah, that's OG,
and pig anuses presumably are plentiful. Corporations are cheap, and pig anuses are presumably plentiful. Oh, this is.
I'm hungry.
Speaking of jerking off for croissants, whoa. That was back when we were a little more blue.
Do you remember this one?
Like your prolapsed anus.
It's not like a. Yeah. I don't have a prolapsed anus.
Just folks, just so people have to understand, part of the reason why that clip is so funny is that he was like actually annoyed. He doesn't get annoyed. Jesse doesn't get annoyed at anything. And then every now and then you say something, he was all like, I don't have a prolapse anus.
Back on duty.
Wait a minute.
Back on duty.
Wait a minute. I also,
I got some packing to do before I go back on duty.
this was another favorite of mine. It's a little taste, like when the cocaine dealer or the gentleman who is trying to manipulate a woman who has a cocaine addiction, he gives her a little taste.
Yep.
The cocaine dealer gives you a little taste.
I'm a dealer of jokes.
He's a dealer of jokes. He gives you a taste, and then you can't help it. You come back for more.
The spectacles worn by reason.
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff we can put
good
on
night.
those. For
Good
sound
night.
bits.
That's ridiculous. That's a long one, but that was I don't know. I always thought that was
Yeah, you
funny.
can cut that out.
Or there's all the sounds that we have to edit out.
We could just make a big long string of those.
Like this. Listen to this. I don't even remember whose that is.
I did that a lot for a while.
Oh, you're actually playing. You're actually playing the sound of us going. You isolated those. Like at what point?
Yeah, man.
Like
I don't know.
But you did bother to save them.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was just because I was editing out so many of them at one point in time before we got better.
You got clickety pens?
No, that's a newer. This one. Sadness I have to deal with. Okay.
They'll need a spectral micrometer to see it's a fabrication.
Well, yes, thank you, Isaac. We'll take your suggestion under advisement, except for the what was the quote? The something on the they're on the rad. That's what I don't
they're on
like.
the rad. Yeah, news 'em ups. They're on the rad. Well,
I like news 'em ups.
Well,
I like voicemail 'em ups.
The listeners have spoken.
Oh, who came up with on the rad? Was that you?
That was me.
Yes, Dan came up with
and
on
the listeners
rad.
listeners have spoken, and
But
they
he likes it, right?
and they have demanded that. That's what I'm saying right
There's
now.
I'm listening.
one listener.
I'm listening.
The listeners,
I'm a listener.
The listeners have spoken, and they've demanded that we continue saying news em ups on the rad.
Okay. We'll see about
Let's
that.
get to it.
Well, let's get right into it. We do have one more voicemail from Jen, and that will get our conversation started because I think
let's do it.
I think she covers a lot of the things that we will be discussing about Star Trek Enterprise Season 4, Episode 22, series finale. These are
Somehow, yeah.
the Voyages.
Ellipses.
Hi, this is Jen.
Hi, Jen.
This is my
I can't hear you.
the episode. I don't even like saying the name of the episode, but you know what I'm talking about, the supposed last episode of Enterprise. Like I said on Twitter, I don't like this episode with an unreasonable passion. I watched it when it first aired back in, I don't want to say how long ago, and I hated it from the get. Now, I do love Riker and Troy as characters. They're actually among my favorite characters. I even had hamsters named after them when I was younger.
Nice.
That's tight.
But I felt that the cast, from a production point of Enterprise, was completely robbed of screen time. They shoehorned a story that was already well done in TNG into this, and they unnecessarily killed off a character for dramatic effect. I didn't like the way that it was laid out, and obviously I didn't like the story. Usually, when I do my rewatch of Enterprise, I consider the last episode the episode before that. But like even the cast were angry at being robbed of screen time and appropriate closure, and I didn't like the time jump either. Really, it could have done so much more. And then
And that's it because you're limited to 90 seconds.
Oh, no.
Whoa.
But we do appreciate the comments, Jen. And I really like that voicemail because it covers some of the really key points about this episode, some of the key critiques.
Yeah,
is
really.
That they took screen time away from the crew of the TV show who, you know, the
They
actual
like
Enterprise.
upstaged the whole show.
I don't get it.
And they killed off a character. And of course, the whole time jump where they're filling in a bunch of canon real quickly.
It jumped like several years, right?
Yes, I think it was 6 years in the
6
future.
years
10
because
years.
there
No,
was only
maybe- no.
4 seasons.
Actually, I think
Where would I stay?
Yeah, because they said they were on the Enterprise for a total of 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's been a long road getting from Warp 5 to Warp 7.
I know.
They have Warp 7 now, and they didn't have... And the Vulcans were preventing them from having Warp 5 in the first episode.
Well, so I think that's a good outline for what we can discuss tonight. Although I do have a mild distraction because she mentioned that she had, Jen mentioned, she had hamsters named after, was it Troy and Riker?
Yeah.
I'm curious if they were European hamsters.
he's
or,
cute.
Or they used to be called Siberian hamsters. I think they're called dwarf hamsters now. That's
He's
the type,
cute.
That's the type of hamster I had. I had one of those little gray dwarf hamsters. I imagine there are a few other types of hamsters around. Hamsters are super interesting. If you go to Vienna, Austria, they got the graveyards and they got a bunch of hamsters living in the graveyards. It's
Oh, comfy.
it's a whole
That's
thing
weird.
over
Yeah,
there.
I didn't see those because I didn't
Yeah.
go deep
They're
into
big
it.
and meaty. A meaty hamster.
I stayed on the outside.
Not that you want to eat them. They're kind of endangered. Semi-endangered.
Something
Yeah.
They
magnificent, something
rodents of
noble.
unusual size.
Hamsters are cool because they put a bunch of seeds in their mouth pouches and then you can rub the mouth pouches.
No,
You can
that's
have like a sort of an
gross.
Amelie style,
No.
soothing mouth pouch rub.
I don't think that sounds good at all.
You're not
He's
into the
cute.
mouth
I'm not
pouch
into
rub?
Amelie style anything.
Oh man! Oh yeah, you gotta eat the chicken like that guy in
Oh,
Amelie.
no,
he like
dude,
eats like
no.
the little chunky fatty bit of the chicken. It looks so good. What a delicious movie.
Well, it's fine, but the way he eats it is just it's not necessary.
All right. So again, yes, thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Where would you
Thank you.
Where would you like to start with this? Because this is an interesting episode to tackle.
It's a neat concept, but it totally just doesn't.
I'm right there with
They didn't
you.
do it right.
I think, to jump right to the end, I guess, like the only kind of satisfying thing about this episode I found was when T'Pol hugged Archer. I thought
Yeah.
that was like a nice book.
Yeah.
That was a nice bookend
Yeah.
to their relationship. And
yeah.
that sort of like the theme, well, not the theme, but like one of
The theme.
One of the major points of the show is like Archer and T'Pol, like their sort of relationship as it went through in this thing. And that was a nice moment. But other than that, yeah, like there were some parts that were kind of entertaining, but a lot of it was just kind of waiting for something to happen when you already kind of knew what was going to happen. Like as it goes along. Nothing was real. It just seemed really.
It's like a forced ending.
Is rote a good word for that? It seemed rote. Am I using that word right?
Maybe.
Well, it depends. A rote means sort of automatic, you know.
Yeah.
By the book, fill in the
Yes,
blanks.
then that's exactly what I mean.
Okay, good.
Okay, good.
Okay, good.
Okay, good.
You did a good job there, Dan.
Because I mean, it was the whole plot with Shran, and then they go get the daughter, and then of course they catch up to him. The problem with when T3 got killed, there was a few problems.
Charles Trip Tucker III.
One of the things is it's always hard to tell. It's always hard to tell when a character is in actual real danger, because the situation with Archer, T3, and that alien dude, the situation with them, they've been in stickier situations than that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so, but suddenly it's urgent, and I get it. It's like any situation could be urgent. You could say, wow, it was amazing they got out of those other ones. But as a viewer, I wasn't feeling as threatened by that situation as Trip Tucker III was making it out to be.
Well,
and it's like, and Archer said he had it. Nobody was getting shot yet, and then Trip Tucker jumped straight to like zapping, suicide.
Attack.
And did he know he was going to do that from the start, or did he decide that halfway through?
Okay. So I think if we pull back, and we'll get into all the little bits and bobs here. There's we're
gonna make sense of them up.
There.
Sound like my 9th grade teacher.
There's a lot to discuss. I think one way to look at it is kind of pull back a bit and be like, okay, because Jesse,
let's do it.
Okay, let's do it.
Can we talk about like the
we can talk about everything, baby.
How many episodes? So in the first season 1 and 2, there were 26 episodes. Season 3, there were 24. Season 4, there were 22. Now, was this canceled before season 4, or
No.
like during? It was during season 4.
Well,
so did they cut it short?
I think it's important to provide some context around this episode because it helps us understand its place. Both in the fictional world as well as in the actual real world, like
very illogical approach.
Why it came to exist. I think it's a very logical approach. What are you talking about? So Enterprise season 4.
Tell me why you think it's logical.
They elevated.
I wasn't saying you were being illogical. I was saying the show was being illogical.
They elevated Manny Koto to showrunner for the 4th season. He came up with the idea of doing these little mini arcs, which they hadn't really done in Star Trek before. But so most of season 4 of Enterprise are these 2 or 3 episode mini arcs. They tell a whole story. It was an interesting evolution of the, going between episodic and drifting towards more serialized stuff. And most people consider the bulk of the 4th season to be quite a successful season of Star Trek, and that really Enterprise had sort of turned around, found its footing.
It was improving.
The characters were well developed. The actors understood their characters. The writers were in the groove, coming up with some cool ideas. And when they started season 4, they were hoping for season 5, but partway through, they were told, nope, you're canceled. Damn. So that's it.
And so had they already had, I forget how they used to do it. Did they film all episodes before the season started? Like, did they go into
no,
it?
Not necessarily.
So they thought that there was a chance they could have had more than 22 episodes.
Bunch of episodes.
I don't remember, and I didn't see in my research specifically whether or not the order got cut short before the season started or partway through the season. That I can't remember, but I do remember that a series finale was foisted upon them. Mm-hmm. And this makes me think about Discovery, right? Because Discovery, they filmed all of season 5 with the belief, or the hope certainly, that they were going to have at least one more season. And after the series was done filming, Paramount said, hey, actually, nope, 5th season's going to be the end.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if all Star Trek moved off of Paramount Plus to Netflix because of Prodigy?
They might.
If it somehow becomes more successful on Netflix.
But the important thing to note is for Discovery, what they did do is they gave them more money and more scheduling time.
Schedule them ups.
So they were able to redo the final episode and maybe even insert stuff into other episodes. I don't know. But they were able to film more in order to make that last episode be a series finale for Discovery. We have yet to see it, but it feels kind of similar.
They haven't even said when it's coming out. Right?
Well, we don't know exactly, but they've started to show preview images and stuff. So probably, early 2024. But the point is that there are some similarities to what happened with Discovery, which is a forced season finale or series finale, and that's what we've just watched here. The other thing to note is supposedly they came up with this idea as a story in season 3. They hadn't written it, but they kind of came up with this loose idea, but not necessarily as a series finale. Just as like an interesting, goofy story to do that would give them the chance to bring back some TNG stuff and get some ratings.
It's like something you would do for like a special, like the Star Trek special for like, you know.
I think for a lot of people,
birthday or something.
yeah, and for a lot of people, I think that's the problem. It's not necessarily with the idea; it's that the idea was the series finale to Enterprise, as opposed to like a one-off episode, when a funny high concept episode.
And that's one of the issues, is that it makes it seem like when they filmed the last episode, they were like, we're not going to get many reviews. Let's see how many views we can suck out of this by throwing in some TNG nostalgia. And so it's like not even leaving the show like on with a dignified like exit.
Like, how can we say fuck you, Enterprise?
They didn't
It kind of like that.
They didn't give it a dignified exit.
Everybody hates you.
They didn't give it a dignified exit because they were like, well, we can get more viewers from TNG, and that's kind of like how it felt.
Well, and the other aspect here,
and that's totally selling Enterprise out.
Well, okay,
yeah, I think so.
I'm not defending this decision, but I do think it's important to at least lay out the argument that was made by the people who wrote this episode. Do you know who that is?
The people that ran the show.
Ronald Moore.
No.
The only reason I say that is because he was in the episode. Like, his name was in the episode as one of the Pegasus people.
Yeah, well,
Commander Ronald Moore.
Yeah. So
I thought maybe he had something to do with this episode. Why else would they have his name in there?
No, it would have been better if it was Ron Moore who had done it. Yeah. And it wasn't Manny Coto who was the ostensible showrunner.
It was Rick Berman.
It was Rick Berman and Brandon Braga. They wrote this idea. They came up with the idea. Brandon Braga, well known for his high concept ideas. Rick Berman, increasingly known for other things. They were also doing this in the context of Enterprise has been canceled. There's been nonstop Star Trek since 1987. And Rick Berman was involved with that pretty much the whole time. So from 1987 to 2005, which is when this aired in May 2005, nonstop Star Trek, and now it was going to end. Yeah. So they decided, okay, we want to, as Brandon Braga put it, we want to provide a Valentine to the fans.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if he said love, like it was like a love letter to the fans or something.
All the
like
quotes
that.
I saw were variations on Valentine. Now, he defended the episode initially. Years later, there are interviews with Brandon Braga where he's like, yeah, I fucked up. That was stupid. You know, you could argue he's just saying that because that's what everyone says. And so he's just succumbing to the
Well, did you know that after Weezer released Pinkerton, Rivers Cuomo, is that his name?
Yeah.
He went out and he said that he was ashamed of the album and like how
I know,
shitty
I
he thought it
that
was.
was dumb.
Yeah, I thought Pinkerton was their best album.
Yeah, totally.
So, anyways, that relates to what you say, is because what people say publicly can be influenced by the way that the public interprets their work.
But they, at least from their perspective, and again, I'm not defending this position, but I can appreciate the perspective that they weren't just closing down Enterprise, they were closing down TNG,
so
Deep Space Nine, it was like Voyager, that
to use the word bookend again, it was a bookend.
Because it was another long stretch before there was any...
Until Discovery came back.
Much like T'Pol and Archer's hug was a bookend to the relationship over the course of that series, TNG as the series finale for Enterprise was a bookend for the million years of Star Trek.
Bookend.
Yes. Very good. Very good rephrasing of what I just stated. See? I'm not complaining that you did that. You complain when I do that.
I quite enjoy this.
You know, Fox has the most.
But where will I stay?
But Fox has the most. He has the most beady kind of language. You know, like
BT.
Yeah,
I thought you meant beady, like somebody with beady eyes.
Where would I stay?
Yes, I love that quote. Yeah. That's from the episode Home, also from the 4th season.
Yeah, Phlox when he talks, he has like he's so
Phlox when he talks, he's got that rhythm.
He's the most rhythmic of them all.
Give us an example of rhythmic Phlox.
Rhythmic Phlox, okay.
P negotiated it down to 4. P negotiated it down to 4.
P negotiated.
P negotiated it down to 4. P negotiated it down to 4. P negotiated it down to 4. He negotiated it down to 4. He negotiated it down to 4.
Dan doesn't usually do this bit until the second break.
He negotiated it down to 4. He negotiated it down to 4. He negotiated it down to 4.
All right.
Didn't have a choice. 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 Didn't have a choice.
Well
See?
done.
Isn't that fun?
It's really quite fun.
It's fun.
It seemed like some of the idea that this was going to be the last episode of Star Trek for a while, and they're saying goodbye to Star Trek. sort of got into some of the dialogue. It seemed like they were.
I have friends.
They were talking about like the captain says there's going to be more Enterprises or like another Enterprise. Like it's just like this sort of wistful conversation.
Reed says all good things.
Yes, he does.
Right? Yeah, there's that.
Archer talks
Somebody
about
says
the next generation. I think that was
Yeah.
Archer who said that, right?
Yeah.
Here's to the next generation.
Here's to the next generation.
Yeah, they mentioned both of those things. And All Good Things was like the series finale for TNG, and they mentioned the series
That was
finale
the
of
only
Enterprise.
show anybody
so,
ever liked.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's why they did it, because it was a series finale.
This is a new feature where Dan states the obvious.
No, it's not the. I'm just stating.
Johnny Obvious.
No, I'm just stating
Here's to the next generation.
that had nothing. Here's to the Next Generation had nothing to do with the series finale, but All Good Things did have to do with the series finale because they were both series finales.
Oh,
And-
serious finale.
Yeah, so I'm just saying what everyone.
I think the guy.
I'm just saying what everyone wants me to
the
say.
guy that directed
what everyone's
this,
saying. I'm just saying.
Alan Kroger.
I'm just
he directed
saying.
some of the other series finales, but not that. one.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. What,
Dan is tapping his forehead furiously.
I'm just saying what everyone's thinking.
Oh, you were indicating thinking by tapping your forehead so hard that I think you're bleeding.
Yeah, I was just saying what everyone was thinking.
Okay.
Usually you say that when someone's too afraid to say something, but in my case I said it because it's obvious because everyone was already thinking it. It's the same thing used differently. Okay, I'm sorry, Jesse, what were you saying?
Jesse was saying it's time to go to break.
I don't think I was, but that sounds real good.
Normally Jesse's all like, it's time to go.
Is it time for a break?
I need a break. Let's take a break. Yes, it is time for a break, and when we get back, we will have a brief discussion about the various season finales. Now that we brought up All Good Things, I think it's good for us to we'll take a quick look over all the series finales.
And we're back
from Star Trek. All right, we will
challenge.
we will be right back.
And we're back.
No, that turns out that mathematically cancels out my be. We'll be right back.
Oh no.
Okay, we will be.
Come on.
Right back. All right, we're back.
And we're back.
Hey, that was great.
Yay.
That was great.
I did it right.
Yeah, you did it.
You did it. You damn right you did it right. Wow, that was very weird. Very weird. Okay. All right. So this is actually the first season finale that we're covering on the podcast. We're 215 episodes in.
This is actually the first season finale we covered on the podcast. That's how you said it.
Well, no, we did Picard.
No. Okay. Let me. You're right, Jesse.
I mean,
And when you're right. When you're right, you're right.
And you're always right.
We did all the pilots.
But when you're right,
when
it's a little bit off.
Hey, that was funny because Jesse just told Dan to fuck you. He's just like, fuck you, Dan.
Yeah, you did.
But you know what?
Computer, freeze program.
When we started the podcast, we started it by going through all the pilots.
What's a pilot?
And we made a number of Pulp Fiction jokes back then, as we do now.
Oh, comfy.
I used the same soap you did. But okay. Yes, we did all the pilots.
Don't worry.
And thank you for the correction, Jesse. The only series finale we've done has been Picard, because Picard has concluded. But I thought
He's cute.
let's just do a quick scan through, starting from the beginning, going in order.
Of all the series,
of all the series.
If we list all the series seasons finales, all we're doing is listing the series of Star Treks in order. We already know what the order of Star Trek series are.
Yeah,
we start with TOS, then it goes to TNG,
I don't
and then
know.
it goes
I
to
don't
DS9.
know why you're upset about this, because I just wanted to say what the titles of and make some comments about the finales. That's all.
Okay.
So
You know what I mean.
you're all like, "Fuck you, man! You can't say shit in order. You can't do that.
I really don't see how this is going to
Why
help.
would you ever list anything in order?"
You're out of order, man.
I don't know, Dan. You used to do all these lists. You haven't done lists in a while. You used to do some like pretty good lists.
Danny Long lists.
My Chopin lists.
Yeah.
Chopin
all right.
list.
So
It's because I've been recording these sounds. Maybe I can fit a list in among my sound recordings.
that's right. I mean, I know the sound clips does take a long
Are
time.
you the fiddleist?
Okay.
Chalish.
Shalash.
Chalish.
Shalash.
Chalish.
Shalash.
Chalish.
Shalash.
Chalish.
Shalash.
Chalish.
Shalash.
Chalish.
Dan is like so
Shalash.
averse to listing things.
Shalash.
Okay.
So Star Trek, the original series, the series finale was Turnabout Intruder, which was Turnabout Intruder, which was season 3, episode 24. Of course, not a true finale in the sense that it was just the last episode, and then they were canceled.
Why'd you bring it up then?
So, what are you going to do? And then Star Trek, the animated series, the Counterclock Incident, season 2, episode 6. We're almost there. We've covered most of the animated series. We've got like 5 episodes left. Yeah. The Counterclock Incident, again, not a true series finale.
Seriously?
I don't know why I said it like that. Not a true series finale. It was just the last episode produced.
Why'd you bring it up then?
They just stopped it.
Well, I brought it
They
up.
said we got to do
this
He-Man
is what we're
instead.
doing. And then
Intruder alert.
all right, that's non sequitur alert.
No, it's because you were intruding with things that weren't actually season finales.
Oh, all right. Okay.
What, dude?
I'm sure people were meant to just understand that.
I did.
You understood the point you were making.
Yeah.
Okay,
This guy's a handful.
I want a poll. Of who understood what I was saying before I explained it?
Oh, no.
all right. Click. 100% of people responding say, no, I just did it on Twitter. Everyone said they had no clue what you're talking about.
Insta poll.
Patrick's a dirty liar.
TNG.
Sound like my ninth grade teacher.
Star Trek The Next Generation. All Good Things, which we already mentioned. That's season 7, episodes 25 and 26. This is the beginning of the feature-length series finale. And you know what? You know what? These are the Voyager's ellipses is? It is not feature length. Right?
No, yeah, that is a bummer.
All
Why,
Good Things.
It didn't even. You're right. It didn't even get.
I am right.
It's pretty short, man.
But what the point I'm making is that, like, okay, you're right. We're all right. But I didn't think about that. How that's also disrespectful. They didn't even give it a full fucking season
not even an hour
finale.
long.
Season finale
all
send
right,
off.
but there's a caveat to that, which we'll get to in a second. There's an arguable caveat to that. And the audience at home, they're all like, oh, I know what Patrick's talking about. I know the caveat he's talking about. Oh, I know about it. But we're not talking about that just yet. Because first, we have to talk about Deep Space Nine, What You Leave Behind, season 7, episodes 25 and 26. Which, okay, I know most people, All Good Things is considered kind of the premier top version of a Star Trek series finale. And I think it's easy to argue that. I personally, I really like What You Leave Behind. I think it's a very interesting. There's a melancholiness to that series finale, which I think is very appropriate for Deep Space Nine, and it wraps everything up pretty well.
I mean, TNG was going to win just by the fact that it was TNG, and DS9 was not as popular as TNG. So.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about a popularity concert.
Here's to the next generation.
No, but they
don't have a popularity concert.
But I mean, the reason people thought that the TNG episode was the better one is because people like TNG more.
That you could argue that is where the popularity comes from. I know
that is his argument.
But I'm saying that
It's
take that aside. I think there's a very strong argument just made on purely critical grounds.
Yeah, so absolutely
that it is the best constructed, most interesting.
That is absolutely
wraps up that storyline.
I would never deny that. Not in a million years.
He would never deny that.
Not in a million years.
But then we have Voyager's Endgame, again, season 7, episodes 25 and 26. This is the kind of 3 Golden Age, Silver Age, whatever the appropriate term is.
Yeah.
Star Treks, they all had feature-length series finales. They had plenty of time to plan the series finales. They all did 7 seasons. So lots of storylines, lots of characters and stuff to build up from. Endgame, I think most people agree that Endgame is not perfect. It does wrap up the story, but it may be a little too quickly. It's a little frenetic. Not bad by any means.
That's okay.
But and some people I'm sure love it, but it's more flawed, I think, than either All Good Things or What You Leave Behind.
Voyager went through a lot of weird periods.
Yeah. Then you get to These Are the Voyages ellipses, and the thing is that the 2 prior episodes, which foolishly I don't have in my notes, I forget what they're called.
The previous episodes leading up to this one?
Yeah, Demon Land or whatever. Whatever them.
Yeah.
It is a 2-part episode. and it really functions well.
They did the mirror universe.
Well, that was before that, right? So you had the mirror
so they
universe.
had there was Demons, then Terra Prime, then
Yes.
These Are the Voyages.
Yeah, so Demons and Terra Prime.
In A Mirror Darkly was the one before. The two part
Demons and
before
Terra
that.
Prime, I think, really do work as a proper series finale. It's that their connected story. It wraps up a lot of storylines. It doesn't get to the Federation stage, and I think that's one of the other critiques of this particular episode is that it was that again. Jen mentioned this in her voicemail about the time jump, which felt so forced because it was like, oh, we just want to be able to show the beginning of the Federation. Oh, and by the way, they don't even do that. We don't get to see the speech.
Not even.
They cheat us of the speech.
That'd be like Zephram Cochrane not taking credit for Warp Drive.
Yeah. Okay. And then real quick, just to wrap up what the remaining shows. Yes, we saw Picard's series finale of Star Trek Picard, The Last Generation, which was good. It certainly was no all good things. In 2024, coming up fairly soon, we'll have Discovery's series finale. We do not know when we'll have series finales for Lower Decks, Prodigy, or Strange New Worlds. For all of them, hopefully not for a very long time.
I hope they bring Prodigy back for a season
I
3.
do too. We know
Tack
that
back?
we're going to get a
Tack
second
back.
season. It's already been produced.
It would be awesome. It would be awesome if the shows all migrated over to Netflix and then
Or
they,
wherever.
or wherever. But I mean, somewhere that's not Paramount.
Not as janky,
I mean-
yeah. This is how you can tell we are no longer getting paid by big Star Trek. Because like Paramount Plus, oh my God. I the most aggravating thing recently, I can't remember if I mentioned it on the podcast, but it's where Paramount Plus, I pay for the commercial-free tier.
Yeah.
It still shows you commercials for Paramount stuff, which is aggravating enough. But the most aggravating thing now is, I don't know what it is, but watching it on my TV, when the ad plays, it doesn't show a picture.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear the
It does
audio of the
different
ad,
things.
and you can hear a countdown. And it either shows black screen or it'll show just a green garbled nonsense. And you're like, I can't even see the ad.
Is it your TV smart? I can't even see the ad. It's like mixed between Al Pacino and George Costanza's father. Well, do you
Marty, you made it.
Do you just use your smart TV?
I use a Google Chromecast.
Okay, it's interesting because
4K
for both my Nvidia Shield and my Pixel 6a, when I play it, and I've mentioned this before, it takes literally 20 seconds. I've counted it.
20 seconds on my Pixel 6a.
For the picture to get to be normal
well,
resolution.
that's another aggravating thing.
Because it's like blocky and shitty for 20 seconds. Although on my other TV that I use the TV smart features, that one seems fine with Paramount Plus. But like anything Android related seems problematic.
Wow.
My giant TV works just fine.
I didn't say that.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
Well, anyway, that's just a quick overview of the series finales and sort of placing this in the
Why would he tell me
in the
that?
context of those. This was the series finale that was sort of squished in there after what could be a better series finale. And it was the end of Star Trek for a good while until Discovery came back in 2017. So many years in between, 12 years in between this episode and the first episode of Discovery.
It's a long haul.
The Vulcan hello.
One I was thinking.
Hello.
Hi there.
I was
Live long and prosper.
Hello.
One of the problems with this episode is that, like we've mentioned, is that they're shoehorning TNG in there, but then it made me think like. Would the episode, because that is part of the problem, is part of the problem is TNG is taking away the focus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, would it have been
Mayweather's in it for 10 seconds.
Yeah, so this
hateful.
kind of brings me my point is, would it actually have been a better episode given this plot? Would it actually have been a better episode if they took all the TNG stuff out and just had it Enterprise? I argue that for this plot they chose, not necessarily.
No, the plot is a boring plot.
It would have been a better
It needs
TNG
it needed a gimmick laid on top
We never
of it.
found
But
out.
it's boring.
We never found out why they were able to catch up with Shran. Like there was a few things. First of all, T'Pol says she didn't trust Shran, and that led nowhere.
Yeah.
He didn't end up betraying anyone.
There wasn't any further.
That simply initiated the conversation from Archer
and-
about how like I've grown. I used to be a racist piece of shit.
Yeah.
I'm slightly less racist.
I know. Look, I'm not saying that her saying that means that they should have had him betray her necessarily. It's just, yeah, it felt like you said it was just for that line. It didn't play into anything really. It just kind of went away.
I think,
and we don't find
it was
out
like a pointless adventure.
and we don't find out how the aliens catch up because Shrian has warp 4, they have warp 2. Taken for granted. Maybe you could argue that's not important, but at the same time, sometimes I would like to be immersed a little more than that.
Well, okay. So like, again, none of that stuff matters if the story is engaging and interesting. And this is not like a terrible story, but it's just, I just think it's not well executed.
We have to take so much for granted.
Yeah.
Like Shran, he pretended to be dead for 3 years. What? Okay, Shran had his daughter stolen. Okay, his daughter was stolen. I didn't know, you know.
Well, and it's all because of the time jump. Oh, and you know, we know at the beginning of the episode.
Well, yeah, it's because of the time jump, but
but you know why we know that there was a time jump even before they tell us there was a time jump? Because they all have silly haircuts.
Oh no. Yeah. Paul has the most.
No, they're all. Reed is basically the same. I guess Reed and Mayweather are pretty much the same.
And the other.
Actually, no, a lot of them.
I think T'Pol's is the most.
Phlox is different.
T'Pol, I feel, is the most noticeable because
the other lady,
Hoshi.
T'Pol is the most noticeable. I feel because she kind of. Because she kind of has a plain haircut before, and now it's like kind of fancied up, you know.
She's got like.
How about Paul?
How about and where would I stay?
And okay, so correct me if I'm wrong because I really haven't seen a lot of this show before.
Where would I stay?
We started doing the podcast, but the cook. All of a sudden, the cook is an important. I don't remember there ever being a cook on this show.
I know this. What's shown in the episode doesn't support this, but I thought it would be fun to think about how all of Enterprise was actually a holo program. Was actually a holo program.
Topologram.
Topologram. I was sort of having this fantasy that like Enterprise was actually just a holo program that they used in Starfleet in the future to study Enterprise, and it was just kind of an interpretation. And the role of the chef is actually the role the player is supposed to take. So the player's job in the Enterprise holo game is that they're supposed to keep their crew's morale up. So not only do they give them food, but they give them counselor they feed their body and they feed their mind. And so that's what
and they give them little kisses.
And so the cook gets them to like do work.
They give them little little non-consensual kisses.
No, my point is it's a holo game. I'll just say it again. What I just said.
All right.
As a player in the game.
One more time.
As a player in the game.
You're playing the chefs.
Okay, stop. Please.
The counseling.
Please.
All right.
As a player in the game, my role is to take control as the chef so I can nurture people through food and nurture people through counseling. And all of Enterprise is actually just a holo program that's based upon the actual events of Enterprise. So everything we've been watching has just been a holo program.
I dig it, man. Yeah.
And so Riker just played the game like other people.
Right.
But then it doesn't make sense because Troy specifically said, like, this happened back then, and so, you know.
Also, that type of thinking is one of the problems with this episode because it starts opening up avenues to that where you're like, for example, the death of Trip, where a lot of people were just like, fuck you, I'm not going to believe that happened because it's such a stupid thing to happen.
Commander Tucker's crazy for catfish.
And
fried catfish with
and it's so dramatically unnecessary
he comes back for catfish.
That a lot of people just simply refute. Like I think Jen even mentioned it in the voicemail where it was like, and I do the same thing when I rewatch Enterprise. I usually just don't watch this episode. I just ended at Terra Prime.
I don't see any reason to ever watch this episode again.
But Jesse, to get to your question,
fried catfish with hush puppy.
About the chef.
Commander Tucker's crazy for catfish.
It is a running gag in Enterprise that they're always mentioning chef. They're always talking about like, oh, chef has steaks tonight, or chef blah blah blah. Right. But you never see the chef
because there's no replicant.
And that's why I say that it's actually a holo program, and the player plays the role of chef because we never see him. Because if they had told us earlier on, it would have given away the fact that it was a holo program. It would have destroyed. It would just destroyed the immersion because we're not meant to find out it was all a holo program the whole time.
It was all a hologram?
We were not meant to know that until the season finale. And when the season finale came, that's when we're supposed to be like, it was a holo program all along. All 4 seasons was a holo program. And the chef counselor was just someone in the future playing the game.
Classic television.
You're describing an even more fucked up. Like, that would make it so much worse than it already is.
I think that's I said the
like
same.
The last episode of Roseanne.
Oh yeah, that was she all like.
She was like, just,
How was it?
It was
What-
just a story she was writing or something.
Yeah, I remember that was fucking goofy. And then they revived it as the Connors, and they totally just kind of ignored that part.
Because it was a
Hey, it's TV. You can
How
do
did I
whatever you
make it
want.
more fucked up by saying that we were tricking the audience this whole time?
No, I'm just saying that as it stands, people can easily remove it from their headcanon by just not watching it and saying that because this is a simulation. Because think about it, the way this episode is structured, none of our heroes are involved. Only holographic recreations of those heroes.
Oh, yeah,
So
right.
it's built into the story that we're meant to believe that this is exactly how it happened.
Right.
But you could easily say, oh, they got it wrong, or the
Yeah,
history's
exactly.
a little weird, or
Yeah,
is
they
this like
got
a
it-
training program or whatever. I was suggesting, Dan, that the scenario you described, which is that they actually concretely declare that none of Enterprise ever happened. It was just it was just like a holographic training game program or something.
That's taking
that
it a
would
step
be
further.
even worse.
That
because
would be
then
worse.
It would be harder to eliminate this episode from the lore, right?
man.
And that would suck.
That would suck.
That would be the ultimate in horrific reset buttons.
That'd be like Zephyr Cochrane not taking credit for warp drive.
It's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to get the reset button correct. In fact, this was a complaint a lot of people had about
It sounds like I'm trying to take credit for this.
Voyager had a lot of reset buttons. I mean, TNG too. Doing it right, you can do it like the Year of Hell. I think that's a good way to do it. I think the Visitor on Deep Space Nine. You can do these reset buttons that have meaning. You tell a meaningful story. But thankfully, they didn't do that in this episode. But I think a lot of it goes to the execution. Right? Again, okay, as a sci-fi story, it's not that there's not a clever story. I can see this idea of
just awkward execution.
yeah, awkward execution and awkward placement as the last.
And
episode.
they, like I said before, they didn't play up the fact that there was any real danger when Trip got killed. Like Archer said he had it under control. Trip jumped in. Trip immediately jumped to
It was like all of a sudden I have to do everything I have in my power to keep Archer from getting killed.
I think, and to add to that point, Dan, is you were saying before how this episode was sort of written by rote. And I agree with you because they did literally by the textbook dramatic steps, which was they had Deanna Troi say, "Oh, it's so sad that Trip doesn't even know that he doesn't make it back."
Yeah, and
so that primes the audience to be like, "Oh no, what's she talking about?"
Yeah.
Then
it's awkward.
they have the required in the writing handbook, the required scene where Trip is in danger. He's about to fall off the gangway, fall off the railing. Oh no, is that when he dies?
Right.
No,
Yeah,
Archer
right.
saves him, and then by Archer saving him, it calms the audience down so that when he actually dies later, it's meant to be it's more of a surprise. The problem is when you follow the rule book so closely, it loses that impact.
I mean, I think, and I kind of know they were going for something cute with the whole Troy and Riker talking about the plot before it happened, but I wasn't into it. I wasn't really into that. What I was into though is, in speaking of that firefight, when we got to see Riker shooting in a shaky hand cam, he was all in the middle of the firefight. He looked so intense. It was awesome. That was cool watching Riker be like, ah. It was awkward though. There were some cool moments in the episode, but it was a couple cool moments.
They could have done some
not many.
avant-garde shit with this kind of concept, but they didn't really handle it the right way.
Yeah. When Trip tried to bring the aliens to Shran, I was wondering if he was planning to sabotage the whole situation all along, or was he actually going to take them to Shran?
No, he knew it. He
knew.
He was
So
like,
he
I
knew
gotta
from the
get in there.
start.
He's like, I can fuck
So, yeah, he
some
knew-
shit up
he
if I
knew-
get into this.
He knew right from the start that he was going to do some fucked up shit.
Rifle butt, rifle butt, rifle butt, rifle butt, rifle butt, rifle butt, rifle butt.
He's saying rifle butt.
I know. Why is he saying rifle butt? Is that when he's in sick bay?
Rifle butt.
Is that when he's dying in sick bay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some odd editing choices in this episode. Like, for example, when they're like, he's got to get into the hyperbaric chamber, and then they put him in there, and then it just cuts to a scene of they're just putting his shit away. It was weird, right?
Yeah, I thought that was weird. Yes.
So there's two Trip
Concurrence.
There's two Trip last moments.
trips.
There's
Trip
the
last
Trip
moments,
there-
doobity doop.
Is it a biphasic trip?
This is the Trip's this is T3's last moment in terms of the Trek timeline, okay?
We gonna be late?
No, we'll be right on schedule. I'll even have time to write my speech.
Great news. Wait till they...
That's the end of Trip as the Trip is the Trek timeline. Here's the last we hear of Trip from the viewer timeline.
Yeah.
but I'm sure you'll make the right choice.
Right.
Nothing special. I just wanted to accent those moments because that's the last we hear of our wonderful.
Because he comes back for
wonderful
catfish.
trip tack.
And I do
Fried
like
catfish with hush puppy.
I do
Hush
like
puppies.
that they ended it.
Hush
on-
puppies are healthy in the future.
I like that they ended it on that more positive note from Trip. Although, from a story perspective, it was structurally confusing and
It
weird.
was, yeah. I thought it was a nice conversation between Riker and Trip, and I thought that the Riker as a chef was mildly entertaining.
Oh, it was mildly entertaining. One critique I have of the Riker as chef, even though I know it was meant to be cute.
Did you ever find yourself attracted to him?
That one?
No, not that one. Although, yes, that was also a little weird.
When he kisses the topologram?
No. More specifically,
Topologram.
he freezes the
Yeah,
topologram.
exactly, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then,
and then
yes,
exactly, yeah.
which creeped me the
That
fuck
was
out.
fun.
I was
And
like, whoa.
I know she's just a hologram, but from the visual, right?
Not
From
cool,
the
man.
visual, it's you have paralyzed a woman.
I know.
And then you kiss her, and
I
you
know.
don't even know this
Thanks,
lady.
baby.
It was like simultaneously.
And you had her fucking cutting carrots like some phallic shit.
Thanks for cutting my carrots and help me
You spare one of those carrots?
I did
You spare
find
one of those carrots?
Master Meatloaf.
You spare 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 one of those carrots?
Master Meatloaf.
I found it very charming that Trip Tucker was just chowing down on some like unpeeled carrots like Bugs Bunny.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean,
and it had a loud crunch.
have you guys ever had unpeeled carrots?
Of course,
Because I have.
I used to only have unpeeled carrots growing up.
Next question: have you ever had an unpeeled cooked shrimp? Because I have.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I've had
have.
that,
It's not my preference.
It's
but
not
I've
my
had
preference, but sometimes it's easier. Sometimes those shells stick on there too
It's
hard.
the- I'm not all about that chitin.
Okay,
I'm not
It's in-
against
it's
people who are into
in,
the
like,
chitin,
soup and stuff.
but you know.
Totally respect that. What about, have you ever had a peanut with the shell? You can eat those shells, and it's in a way it's better because you get all that salt.
I think you suggested that to me once, and I tried
Like a boiled
it.
peanut?
I wasn't
Yeah, or no,
I
just a
wasn't
normal
huge fan of
peanut.
it.
I can understand because it's fibrous, and like eating a fingernail, sliced fingernail.
Squirrels
or something.
do that shit.
I'm not super into husks.
Yeah. What about
Nothing against husks.
When I first started eating sunflower seeds, I thought you were supposed to chew up and swallow the shells. When I first saw someone do it, it blew my mind.
Did the same thing happen when you first had a pineapple?
No.
Dan thought that was
Silly.
funny. Dan was like, "Oh you,
you,
that's funny."
But yeah, and then I tried to eat sunflower seeds like a normal person, and I didn't like it. So anyway,
Yeah, they suck.
What, did you just give it up? Then you just don't eat sunflower seeds.
fuck those things.
Yeah, they taste bad.
They put holes in your stomach. Probably
Yeah,
not.
they do. Another thing to mention, although not make a big deal about this, but I do think it is worth mentioning. It is that Riker and Deanna, mainly Riker, they look a little different because they are they're filming this episode like 12 years later, 11 years later than the Pegasus, and it's just kind of funny that Riker's he's a little puffy, got a little belly,
a little bit puff.
and he's wearing that old uniform of his, but he doesn't quite pull off the Riker swagger. He actually pulls it off much better later in Picard and
Yeah, he does.
and in Lower Decks. So I don't know. I thought that was it wasn't pulling me out of this story. This is Star Trek. It is sci-fi. They have styrofoam rocks and all that other sort of stuff. It was just kind of funny to see that version of Riker in the old TNG era uniforms and set recreations, which, by the way, they did a great job. I thought it was really fascinating to see the set recreations. The digital Enterprise was interesting. It wasn't super great, but at the time, I do remember that being pretty awesome because we hadn't seen the Enterprise D since Generations in 1994. So it's like 11 years. It was like 11 years later that you get to see the Enterprise D and in high definition and widescreen. So that was kind of neat, even though the stars were all weird. The stars were all goofy and weird.
Speaking of ships, so there was Commander Ronald Moore of the Pegasus. There was Lieutenant, I don't know, is Don Velasquez another name we're supposed to know? How about Eric Motz or Andy Simonson?
Yeah, I think those are all producers and
What
writers
about
and stuff.
What about
like
Phil
Mike,
Wallace.
What about
Phil
Mike
Wallace.
Gonzalez or something?
What about
Phil Wallace.
is that,
Phil Wallace?
Yeah, is that someone we're supposed to know?
I mean, could be. Why not?
Well, I mean, you know something?
Hell of a handball player.
That Phil Wallace. When he said to when Riker said to Troy, he's like,
You're the empath. Why don't you tell me?
He's all getting frustrated. He's like, get the fuck out of my head, you know? Because imagine that, being around a Beta Z and they start questioning you about like your feelings, which is great when you're in counseling, but in day-to-day scenarios, it's got to be like a little bit like, okay, man, I kind of want to keep my thoughts private right now, and you're making that hard.
Todd Gonzalez.
Gonzalez?
Sleeve McDick.
What are you talking about? Oh, is that the names from that Japanese baseball game? Okay,
some made up American names. Todd Gonzalez.
What Japanese baseball game?
I forget which game it is.
Mike Hernandez.
There was a baseball game. I was on NES, I believe, Nintendo.
Baseball Stars
on Famicom.
Was it Baseball Stars?
It might have been Baseball
Mike
Stars.
Truck.
Probably baseball stars.
But yeah,
Shown fur coat.
There's a list of all the names that are intended to be American names.
Willie Dustus.
But invented through a Japanese linguistic lens.
Glenn Allen Mix.
You were talking about how he froze to Paul and then kissed her. So
unconsensually.
Yeah. So when you watch this first happened when he said when Riker goes
computer freeze program,
when Archer was walking and it froze Archer, you could tell it seemed like he was actually physically slowing down, but you could tell the moment where it actually froze, like where the video froze. But it almost looked like, have you ever pretended to hit someone, but it's your friend, so you don't want to hit them?
All the time.
So you like, you know that thing people do where they swing and then they slow down so they don't actually hit them, so it looks really fake? It seemed like that's what he was doing when he was walking. When T'Pol froze, you could tell the video froze, but then when Riker went to kiss her, you could tell she was all moving around. And you know what was also kind of weird is that after they hugged and Archer was walking towards the thing, like watch her, she's like swaying in this way, almost looks like they've been drinking or something. Like,
was she swooning?
Dude, Dan, you watched the hell out of this episode.
I did, and if there's,
he always does, man.
No, and I'm sorry, and I feel
this
really,
guy brings
I
it.
feel really ashamed if there was Jolene Blaylock was
Delon Rampu.
I apologize if Jolene Blaylock was going through something then, but it just looked like she was all swaying after that, and so I'm just not quite sure what was going on there. You should rewatch it, and then after the hug, she looks like she's all.
All right, how about this? Let's take a break. We'll watch it, and then when we come back, we'll come back from the break and conclude our discussion of Star Trek Enterprise Season 4, Episode 22. These are the Voyagers.
Voyagers. These are the Voyagers.
These are the Voyagers.
We say that all the time in Star Trek. We are the Voyagers.
Enterprise.
We say that. We say that. We are the Voyagers. Patrick, that's not what they say. It's we are the Voyagers. Get it right.
Thank you for speaking truth to power, Dan. We will be... we will
Trip
be...
Tucker the Third.
We will be right back. All right, we have returned.
Where would I stay?
There we go. I don't know why I'm so charmed by that clip. Trip Tucker
because he's
the
very
Third.
charming. He's very charming.
For context, that's from the episode Home, which I believe is the second or third episode.
T'Pol's mom died
in season 4.
T'Pol's mom died.
Right,
and, T'Pol invites Trip Tucker back to
another like just okay.
How about T'Pol? Taking my folks down to Mobile.
We're gonna give short shrift to grief. That's in this episode. That's what we're gonna do. Short shrift to grief.
This sounds like when people do an impression of W. Bush.
Taking my folks down to Mobile.
That sounds like
I'm taking my
park in Botswana.
Park in Botswana.
Taking my folks down to Mobile.
We all thought he was dead and gone.
I got some packing to do before I go back on duty. Back on duty.
So earlier I mentioned about how one structural thing about this episode is that because it's on the holodeck, all of the characters except for Riker and Troy are holographic recreations, right? So it's not even the real characters. But the other thing that framing it as a holodeck episode does is it means we don't really see the Enterprise, the NX-01 Enterprise, until the very last shot, right? There's not much NX-01 Enterprise because it's a holodeck. On a holodeck program, you don't see the outside of the ship.
Right.
You're just walking around the ship like playing Dan's crazy game.
You have to program that outside in.
Where you have to feed people's body and soul.
Yeah. But the point is that you're not seeing external orthographic top-down views of the show. So in the series finale to Enterprise, we are robbed primarily of not only a number of characters having any screen time,
establishing ship shots.
Yeah, but not even the beautiful ship.
Yeah,
and the beautiful ship shots that they were really good at, especially in the fourth season. They did a really good job with limited technology of the time. It was really the Dark Ages, the first half.
It was
of
a
the first
long
decade.
It was a long road
of the 2000s. But I think we missed out on that. I think that's a shame.
Yeah. Troy asked Riker if he wants supper. When was the last time you asked for supper?
Yeah,
where do they say that?
Why would they say supper in the future? We don't say supper now.
I think some places. I think some parts.
Some places say supper.
Some places.
Well, yeah, like in
I
the
think if you
South
say
or
pop,
something.
you probably say supper. You think
Pop.
so?
But is there a difference?
Yeah.
Isn't supper supposed to be earlier than
Maybe in
dinner?
the Midwest.
Isn't supper supposed to be earlier than dinner? or
No,
something?
dinner's earlier.
Dinner's earlier than supper.
Dinner's like a late lunch.
Okay, shows what I know. Supper.
Well,
Supper's like
regional
a
differences.
lighter evening meal.
It's got regional
Did you know?
differences.
Did you know? Dominic Keating is 5'8".
Reed's shorter than I thought he'd be.
Do you think he was offended by that line?
I don't know.
Did you know he did some voices in Diablo 4?
I did not, but that's cool.
Yeah.
It's got Dominic Keating.
Another thing that Jen mentioned in her voicemail, and it came up in a lot of the background research, was that a lot of the members of the cast were frustrated with this episode, but not all of them. Dominic Keating has, in interviews, has said that it's not like his favorite episode, but he thought it actually was pretty fun and pretty interesting. John Billingsley, he was like, look, it's not a great episode, but it's, people maybe overreacted.
They couldn't resist giving him a flock smile at the end. Like they just had to do that.
They paid the money for the flock smile in the pilot, in Broken Bow, and they paid for it in the series finale.
That was
nothing in between. You never get to see the flock smile in between.
No, it was kind of pandering a little bit, but it was entertaining. But it was,
by all accounts, a lot of the other actors were not excited about this. I think a lot of the writers too, who felt kind of like Berman and Braga were coming in and were like, okay, here's the deal. This is going to be the next story.
And to put it in terms of which is the A plot, which is the B plot, the TNG was the A plot.
Yeah, that's the A plot.
And that's bullshit. The series finales,
I know.
the A plot of the series finales should traditionally, one would think, I try to keep an open mind, but
It's
you would
so
think,
ridiculous,
but you would think that the A plot of the series finale would involve that show itself, not some other show.
It was a FU Enterprise.
Yeah, I think it that it's a good point earlier about how this would have made a reasonable like mid-series episode, not like great, not terrible, but like it would have been, the plot still needed some work, but like that idea was like kind of interesting. It's just having it the series finale and the plot they chose to go with, it was just like.
I think
there's nothing felt like it was at stake.
Yeah. I think what you do
except Trip Tucker III, and that just kind of happened, and you're like, now I'm just bummed out, and I didn't even get anything out of it.
You revise this idea by not having it be a season finale or a series finale, and instead maybe go and have it be a story that we've already watched. Right? Take a previous. Episode story.
That's like the DS9 Tribbles.
Yeah,
thing.
but instead of being time travel, like I like the holographic recreation, but make it purposefully different. Do one of those things like they've they've done it in Star Trek, X-Files, etc., where you see things from different perspectives, right? Yeah. And do that old, the Kurosawa type thing where you have unreliable narrators. Mm-hmm. And I think you could do a fun story where
the story is maybe even slightly different based on a different perspective.
Yeah, I
absolutely,
think
or even like way different,
or provides a different perspective of a story that we saw before, and in doing so informs that story or makes us reevaluate that story. That would have been interesting, certainly more interesting, I think, than the story they came up with here. And part of that frustration is, yes, series finale, all that stuff, but it's also like you got Jeffrey Combs as Shran. We love Shran. We love Jeffrey Combs. And then it's like, it's a nothing story.
He's
great.
I know. Yeah.
He's fantastic. But and then you're right. And then partway through the story, he's just gone.
We don't get the beginning or the end of his story. He just shows up, says all this shit went down, and he's like, now go get him. And then T'Pol
gotta use the old flashing ruby ruse.
Then T'Pol says, I don't trust him. And then he like keeps his word, but I guess we weren't supposed to trust him because he got like their engines wrong. Like for a second, it's almost as if for a second you could say, oh, Shran lied and said they only had warp 2. Maybe Shran actually knew they would be able to catch up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like the fact that they caught up, you could for a minute in there argue, Shran double crossed them, but that's not what happened. Like, that's not even what they went with. Yeah. So there's no reason to distrust him. And he just fucking disappeared. Do you think the Andorians, they were first introduced in TOS, did they have this thing about cold in TOS? Because in Enterprise, they like the cold, right?
I think I can't remember if it was overt, but
I don't know if it was a retcon where they not even retcon,
thing
just a new lore they introduced.
Okay, I honestly I cannot quite remember. We'd have to go look at maybe the Journey to Babel or one of these episodes that has some Andorian action in it. I think based off of 1960s TV logic, if you're blue, that means you like the cold.
Yeah, right.
And if you're red, it means you're evil and you live in hell.
Yeah.
What about Smurfs?
They still do that red thing. Whenever someone's wearing a red tie in some kind of scary demon movie, it's always like, oh, that's the devil.
Oh, that's the devil. Right there. He's got a red tie on.
I'm the devil.
You are the devil.
You are the living end, Jesse. You are the living end. Did we know that Shran's wife was named Jamel? Did we know that before?
Yeah, I believe so.
How do they move their antenna? Is that computer graphics, or do they have like wires on those things, or
No,
like little animatronic?
They had
thing?
animatronics.
Animatronics.
That was a new addition.
That
in
shit was
Enterprise.
badass. Like I'm not talking about for the season finale.
He said it all funny. You're like, that was badass.
That was badass.
That shit was badass.
That
That
shit was badass, man.
But that Andorian shit, I've
Like,
got to tell
the
you, them
Andorians-
antennas. Oh man, they just wiggling back and forth. It's great.
I love the Enterprise. Like all throughout Enterprise, it's like they either like kind of wander around listlessly, or sometimes they like frowny, and sometimes they, it was really cool.
They should have had a sitcom.
Are you a moose?
An Andorian
moose?
sitcom.
Yeah.
Well, you
Oh,
were
'cause I'm
waving.
doing a-
you were
Moose
doing a
antlers.
Yeah, you were putting your hands on your head like a moose antlers.
I
But they
guess
could
I
have done
was.
like an Andorian sitcom where all sorts of hilarious things happen because the antenna giveaway.
Right, yeah.
Like Andorians, they could have Shran playing poker, some Texas Hold'em, and like when he gets a good hand, his antenna are all like, "Ning, ning, 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 ning," something along those lines. Do you agree, Dan?
Totally.
Do you agree with me?
I kind of lost track of what you were saying.
I got that impression.
Oh damn! That's our Dan.
Don't worry about it. You can listen back to it on the podcast when it goes on the air.
Don't worry.
Don't worry.
On the internet.
Don't worry.
I think another thing is that we've talked a little bit about the structural problems with this episode. There's just some stuff also that's sort of aggravating where like Troy is giving Riker all this advice about like, oh, you should fast forward to this part of the program. But
Right.
then later she's like, oh, but I never ran the program. It's like, so you never ran the program. So are you just remembering the historical, like, this particular historical
Right.
story?
That's interesting.
And I think part of if you work backwards from it, you're like, okay, why do they have a pre-programmed holographic simulation of this event? Why is this event that happens before the signing of the Federation Charter? Why is this event important? And I think they didn't live up to it with the plot, right? This plot is a banal
So
plot.
wait, I may be like totally dumb and missed out, but this episode they're signing the charter. Is that a peace brokering peace
It's
between
basically-
Andorians and Tellarites?
It's the Federation.
Yeah, it's basically the founding. My understanding is that basically you're at the founding of the Federation with the Vulcans, Tellarites, and Andorians and humans all agreeing to this alliance.
Right.
And then Phlox, of course, mentions, hey, there's these other people watching. They're in attendance. These other planet species. So
I think
the implication is it's going to get the ball rolling. Other people want to join.
That's that place they sat in for the speech. I think is that the same place that has. Remember, there's another episode where they were in some stadium looking thing and it had outside seating and it was off in the water. It's like
I think
is that supposed to be Alcatraz or something?
You know what? I don't know. And I was reminded, since I do have Paramount Plus, I've been mainlining episodes of Frasier. And there was an episode.
Mainlining them.
I think in the third or fourth season, I think it was the third season. There's an episode where they go to a basketball game, and it looks just as hilarious as this episode,
Wow.
where Reed and everybody are sitting there. They're meant to be sitting in this massive arena, and it just looks like there's like 10 people there and a bunch of walls behind them. It looks so stupid. It was the same on that episode of Frasier in the basketball arena.
So speaking of treaties, there was this was all about the Treaty of Algeron, which happened in 2311, which redefined the Romulan neutral zone. That happened somewhere between TOS and TNG, is the Treaty of Algeron, when they decided not that they weren't going to use cloaking devices. Yeah. And can we assume
that's been referenced before?
And can we assume Section 31 has some involvement in this hidden cloaking situation with the Pegasus?
Maybe.
Like, who else would it be? Maybe.
I don't know.
Did
but
they have
maybe.
Section 31 back then?
No,
they didn't.
No, that came on Deep Space Nine a little later, but they retroactively you
They
can,
would have had something else in place, I imagine.
Maybe a little.
maybe just a little bit, just a little
I
bit of
guess it's a
section,
little tricky.
little Section
Well,
31.
because they had something back in the Discovery times.
Well, yes, they did. I did like that little cameo from Data. From Brent Spiner.
Dude,
that was charming.
That was great because
Yeah.
like I'm not the only one, but I can think of in my head of specific people that I've worked with that were like that, where they would just call you up out of nowhere. You're focused on some shit, and they're just like insistent on like an info dump on you about some project they're involved in that like you don't give a shit about, and it's like, okay, I would care if I had time, but I'm fucking doing shit right now. Like I don't need your info dump, and they like keep
Info
pressing
dump.
you, and it's just like there's nothing I can do with this. I want to be supportive, but I can't right now. And so, but yeah, that was cute. That had him. I mean, Data's forgivable because it's part of his charm.
Yeah. The only issue again is we're being charmed by Data in an episode where Data shouldn't be in it, right? Because it's
another character upstaging like
exactly.
Data's voice. Oh, now it's Data's voice.
Exactly.
We're gonna hear from Worf. No.
And for me, it really is. I think. I mean, I don't know. I guess they were going for something stylistically, but I think they copped out. Not having any of Archer's speech, playing up the speech is like, oh, I had to memorize his speech in third grade and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like Chekhov's speech. It's like Chekhov's gun. You expect to hear something of the speech, even if it's just like the first 3 lines are like to boldly go or whatever, you know. Yeah, you're not going to have the whole fucking speech. I understand that.
I had to memorize this speech in grammar school.
Grammar. Who talks like that? Come on.
But I felt a little ripped off that it was almost like at the end of the episode, it's like, you know what? Fuck you. You're not even getting this.
Yeah.
This whole series has been leading up to this and you don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't get that. And then, but I mean, it goes part of the theme with the episode of like not getting to know why the aliens caught up with them, even though they had slower warp, not like knowing much about what happened with Shran, except he just appeared and sort of vanished. Like they're just like dropping out bits of info. And maybe that stuff could have been filled out if they dropped the TNG stuff, but would that have made it a better episode? It's hard to say. You know, unfortunately, the TNG part might have been like the saving grace of this episode, only because it wasn't a good episode to begin with. Like, but I don't know. I don't want to say that because that's kind of a bold statement. Because as we've established, the TNG being involved, that is the problem with this episode. But I think they probably made the episode different. I don't know what they fucking did, man. But like, there's
I know, right?
You're like trying.
I'm trying.
I'm trying to help you guys.
No, I'm just trying to think like.
No, it's a maddening episode.
No, I mean,
it is a maddening episode.
I'm thinking that maybe the plot, part of the reason the plot was so weak is because they had to try to compromise around this TNG plot. So if they had added extra stuff without the TNG plot, like I said, I don't know that it necessarily would have made any better.
I think the other problem, and this is where I disagree with John Billingsley, who I think argued, he was like,
Very illogical approach.
John Billingsley, at least in one interview, he was like, okay, look, it's not that great an episode, but I think a lot of people, they went a little overboard in their negative critique. Sometimes I'm watching this episode, I'm like, yeah, okay, I get that. It's not like a terrible episode, but I think it is, all those contextual factors are what make any little piece of it extra bad, is because it's taking away time, because it's focusing on the other characters. But I think also the conceit of Riker being like, I have a moral quandary. I know I'll go on the holodeck to work it out. Okay. Let's say that. Okay. Now, what holodeck program am I going to use? I'm going to like wander around the Enterprise when Archer is facing a moral issue. No, Archer's just helping out an old friend. Right. So like what exactly is he learning here? Like when you actually watch the scenes where Riker is supposedly learning, like when T'Pol says something about like, oh, I learned that humans trust your instinct. Riker's all like, ah, ha, ha.
Yeah, so
he's just cutting up vegetables.
So yeah, T'Pol's talking about like following your instincts, right? He likes that one, but then Phlox makes an assertion that like when he told Trip Tucker III to take a nap, and Riker was like, did he do it? And Phlox was like, he didn't have a choice because he gave an order. Yeah. And then Riker's like, I don't like that. So it's obvious where Riker's leaning from the start, because he'll take the instinct comment like as a good one, but then when he introduces the idea of like, well, you have to follow order, Phlox, he's like, no, you don't have to do that. And even Troy was like, you're gonna pick the right decision. And Troy, by saying that, was basically saying you're gonna fucking
Troy said that, Trip said that. But you know what? Let me reframe what my critique is, because really what my critique is that, like, when we watch this episode, yeah, he's interacting with Phlox and with Archer and with T'Pol, and he's having these conversations that help inform his decision making. That's not the issue. My issue is, why the fuck would he think that would happen in the first place?
What, that he would
why would he think that this program would result in him having a conversation with a Denovian doctor who triggers something by an accidental offhanded comment?
Yeah, I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense. And that's, I think,
he was looking for inspiration.
I
in
think
something.
Part of what makes people angry when you're watching this is because even though it has the sheen of being well put together, it really kind of isn't. And there's so many little things that fall apart if you look at them too closely.
And I know that this doesn't matter because we know Riker's going to be okay, but I still kind of want to know what the results are of him. Like.
Well, you can watch the Pegasus.
Oh,
you can watch that episode because that's
oh, that's right.
Yeah, this is all.
That's right.
This is
all
all
totally
the background
forgot.
of this episode. Now it stretches it out.
I totally forgot.
In that episode, it's you see Riker being like, I don't know what to do. I have this order, but the Captain Picard is a nicer guy than this piece of shit. That's again a part of the frustration, right? Is that you look closely at it and it kind of doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. And so you're like, why are we watching all of this?
When we were talking about Picard season 3, one of the problems, spoiler alert, I have to make a funny voice before I say spoiler alert. That's the way you know it's humorous.
Also, humorous spoiler alert.
One of the problems that people had, and rightfully so, was the fact that so many people got killed in the season finale of Picard.
A number of characters got seemingly unnecessarily killed.
Right, and my argument was, at least if they're... Because it's annoying when they introduce high stakes, but they don't follow through with them, and there's no suffering as a result. So on the one hand, like, I still kind of think that to a certain degree, but on the other hand, it is true. Like, they did just try to kill people off for dramatic effect. And actually watching this episode made me think about that, because I was like, why do I have such a problem with it in this episode, but I didn't have a problem with it in Picard season 3? And so I'm still kind of on the fence about, I think just... It's just sort of, I have two things at odds. One thing is, don't just kill off beloved characters just for dramatic effect. But on the other hand, if you're going to introduce high stakes, you got to follow through with them somehow. Part of the problem is there was the high stakes. We know there were high stakes in this show, in Enterprise, because they told us there were high stakes.
Exactly.
But we didn't feel like there was high stakes.
Right,
you know?
right.
And then it's like, okay, you just told us this happened.
And my critique, and I think a lot of people's critique of Picard season 3 was not so much that a character died. It was that a number of characters. It's like,
right. They kind of held it back a little bit.
There's a balance, and it can start to feel cruel after a certain point when you're like, well,
especially in Star Trek when you're not sort of like used to that kind of thing. It just doesn't fit with the theme of it.
There is a huge difference between Spock's death in Star Trek 2 and Trip's death here.
Yeah.
Trip is an awesome person. Trip did this excellent last minute trying to solve the problem, sacrificed himself without hesitation because he knew what we're meant to take away from this is that Trip knew how important it was that Archer got safely to the signing ceremony, that this could, the entire fate of the Alpha Quadrant and the Beta Quadrant, this could all hinge on Archer getting there safely. They'd like us to think that anyway. They spend a lot of time having Archer tell us that that's not true.
Yeah.
So that undercuts that a little bit. But everyone else is like, no, it's true. It's really important for him to be there. So yes, Trip valiantly sacrifices himself, but it doesn't have the same weight as the Spock thing because of just how the story is set up, the structure of it. You don't feel like it's earned.
And after it happens with Spock's death, you really feel that emotion because they have that moment. There is no emotional moment after Trip dies.
No, they're just packing up his stuff and complaining about his advice.
Yeah, right.
T'Pol is like, what the fuck was he telling me this bullshit advice?
Why would he tell me that?
I mean, I like that scene. It's an example of there are these scenes in there where they do provide a little bit of character development, a little bit of emotion. And
Dojin suckerfish.
Yep, that's another good example.
I was talking about this line before.
Did you ever find yourself attracted to him?
They pulled the old switcheroo. We were supposed to be like, what did he ask that of Mayweather? Yeah. What did he ask? Did he ask him if he found him attractive? It's like, no, he was talking to Hoshi.
Again, that was a cutely edited scene.
Yeah, it was
nothing super special,
but it was kind of edited. It was cutely edited, but it was very much like supposed to be like what?
And you know, the action in the episode, even though the actual plot was not particularly interesting, I thought the action was good. the aliens were sufficiently scary looking.
Oh yeah, I like those alien guys.
It was
Now
funny.
open the case.
The guy was.
There was a lot of voiceover, a lot of ADR in this episode, which made me wonder, like, did they have a problem with their microphones or something? Because there was so many parts of this episode where it was clear that they had recorded the audio later.
The alien dude, he kind of had made these weird, awesome facial expressions when Trip Tucker III was reaching up to grab his Zappo device. Like the alien, he kind of sneered while he looked up at it, but then when he looked over at his partner, he gave the sort of upside down smirk. Like, I don't know what you call an upside down smirk. Just he gave this weird
A frown.
but it was like a like kind of frown.
Grimace.
And like he was, if you watch the scene where he's like going back and forth with Trip, he's like looking around, alternating between these weird smiles and these weird like frowny smirks.
You know, he gave off a bit of a vibe of, the antagonist in the Gambit two-parter, TNG's The Gambit, the whole with Picard as the pirate guy, or maybe like Immortan Joe from Mad Max Fury Road, that kind of vibe. Of course, we only see a little bit of this alien and the actual plot itself. Like, I think you put it very well, Dan, by saying we don't know we don't know the beginning of the plot, we don't know the end. Yeah. We just get inserted in the middle, and it's already aggravating because we're already in a holographic simulation, so it's even more meaningless.
And yeah, like you pointed out, also that the flashing amethyst, like that saved the day.
Yeah,
Troy at the end when Archer's going to give his speech, she goes, "Oh, he'll be fine. I had to memorize this speech in grammar school. You wish you could tell them all that this alliance will give birth to the Federation." I wasn't quite clear what she meant because she says, "You wish you could tell." Oh, I see. She wishes she could tell.
But she can't because they're in objective mode.
Yeah, they're in objective.
They're not in interactive mode.
Objective mode.
Plus, it's a hologram. Like, I don't know. It's a hologram.
It's a hologram.
Is that? I guess that's what she was saying. She was just trying to say, "I wish I could tell these holograms like that what they're doing." I guess she was just being like, "Oh, if they only knew," or something.
I guess I didn't know. This is the first mention of the NX-01 as a museum ship, which we, again, spoiler alert, we do get to see that later manifest. So that's kind of cool.
Here's to the next generation.
I did like that. I'm torn on this actual ending shot where they went from the Enterprise with Picard's voiceover blending into Kirk's voiceover, blending into Archer and the NX-01.
I have that ending part is about 15 seconds if you want to play it. I don't know.
Let's do it. Let's get a little crazy, Dan.
Let's do nuts.
Space. The final frontier.
The last one.
These are the voyages of the Starship
Ellipses.
Enterprise. Its continuing mission.
To explore strange new worlds. To seek out new life.
I want to know what
and new
episodes they grab
civilizations.
these from.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
So,
the Enterprise music.
So I'm assuming that they recorded. I'm assuming they recorded Scott Bakula's ADR for this episode, but I want to know what episodes they grabbed the other clips from.
Well, they repeat them over and over again. I know,
but I want to know the exact one.
We're assigning it to the audience.
Or do you think it's
audience? Find out.
Or do you think they grabbed it from the opening?
Maybe they definitely grabbed it from the opening. But I bet you there are multiple recordings of each opening.
I guess it's a little tricky.
See, maybe Patrick Stewart re-recorded it in season 3.
I've already started to reduce the plumbing. 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 I've already started to reduce the plumbing.
Coming to the end, folks. Wrapping things up.
Pink skin, thanks, 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 pink skin.
This is where things go.
Thanks, pink skin, thanks, pink skin, thanks, pink skin.
This is late at night.
Thanks,
We
pink
record
skin.
real late.
Take no credit.
Here on the East Coast of the United States of America.
Someone you know?
Someone I knew.
Someone you know? Someone you know?
Someone I knew.
Someone you know?
Someone I knew.
Someone you know?
Taking this groove.
I knew.
Someone you know?
Someone I knew.
Someone you know?
Someone I knew.
Thanks, pink skin, 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 thanks, pink skin.
Oh yeah, the whole
Captain asked for meatloaf,
pink
didn't he?
skin
You
business.
spare one of those carrots?
We negotiated it down before.
You spare one of those carrots?
Take no credit. Take no credit.
Podcast.
Someone you know?
Someone I knew.
Someone you know?
Someone I knew.
Podcast.
Someone you know?
Someone I knew.
Someone you know?
Someone I knew.
Didn't have a choice.
He'll undoubtedly make
Didn't have
every
choice.
effort to take no
Tell me, Dan,
Didn't have a choice.
give me a signal when you've clicked every one of the buttons.
Thanks, pink skanks, 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 pink skan, thanks, pink skan, thanks, pink skan, thanks, pink skan, thanks, pink skan, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, pink skan. 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 Thanks, pink skan.
Oh my God! Here, oh, it's back! Oh
You spare one of
no!
those carrots?
Oh no! What's going on
Fried
here?
catfish with hush puppy.
rifle butt. Rifle butt.
All right, that's depressing.
He'll undoubtedly make every effort to take no credit.
That'd be like Zephram Cochrane not taking credit for Warp Drive.
It sounds like I'm trying to take credit for this.
Time heals all wounds. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Time heals all wounds. Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Chef's promised at least 6 kinds of cheese. Chalish,
Shalosh.
chalish,
Shalosh.
chalish,
Shalosh.
chalish.
Shalosh.
Fried catfish with hush puppy.
Penis.
Where would I stay?
Commander Tucker's crazy for catfish. I've already started her plow meat broth.
All right. Okay. I think we've done our. We've done our due diligence.
Do you think Andorian cabbage soup is some kind of blue borscht?
Okay. Yeah. I understand why you brought that up. I have no meaningful answer for you.
What if it's yellow?
This is sort of, you know how there's rhetorical questions? That was a rhetorical joke.
Wait a second.
You just wanted to be able to say blue borscht.
I did not.
Yes.
I did not.
I know you well enough, Dan.
No, you don't tell me who I am. I tell me who I am. Don't define me. I'm not who people say. You don't ever. You're not who people define you as.
Okay.
Okay, I liked. To sum it up, I was entertained by the Chef Riker parts. I thought the hug with Archer and T'Pol was nice. Sort of like that. Sort of brought it back to. That was like the only thing that really brought it back.
It was nice. It was good. A lot of the T'Pol Archer scenes were solid.
Yeah. I mean,
I like when she was fixing his button and complaining.
Yeah, she's all motherly.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice.
Yeah,
you know?
motherly / sitcom-y.
Yeah, a little sitcom.
Anything else? Because otherwise, I think we got to go.
I think that's it, man.
The people listening, they got to
it.
go. They got to go home.
Oh, when
they're at the podcast listening booth,
where
you go to the library and they give you the booth where you can sit and listen to podcasts in peace, and then you got to go home.
When T3 asked Riker if there's anyone
Charles Strip Tucker III,
when he asked Riker if there's anyone he like truly trusts, and Riker says, "Yeah, 1 or 2," he was talking about Picard and his Imzadi.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
His Imzadi.
Yeah, okay. See, again, you blue borscht in his Imzadi. I do like the beta lore for Trip Tucker, that he didn't die, that he faked his death. You don't actually see him die, right? It is kind of interesting. They put him in the hyperbaric chamber and then just, all of a sudden he's dead. And I think there's some novels, comic books, etc., headcanon, all that combination where people say he faked his death and then he joined Section 31 and went on some mission or something and eventually ended up with T'Pol.
Apparently Trip Tucker III owned a Frankenstein. I know it's Frankenstein's monster, but just like it's better to say it's a Dracula.
Oh, you know what's so hilarious? I sincerely thought that, because now I remember, yes, he had that little Frankenstein figurine, but when you said he owned a Frankenstein, I thought you meant he owned the kiosk at the mall that sold beer and Polish sausages.
No. I know it's Frankenstein.
I don't think that exists anymore, but it was a staple. It was a mainstay of American malls.
It was all right, man.
For many years. Yeah, you could get a fucking beer.
It's better to say
and a sausage.
It's better to say
a Frank and a Stein.
It's better to say a Dracula, and it's better to say a Frankenstein. Even though it's Frankenstein's monster, it's better to say a Frankenstein. It's
Who
funnier.
talks like that, dude?
This guy over here.
I don't know if Trip Tucker III ever owned a Frankenstein, as far as we knew.
What are you talking about?
He's talking too long, is what he's talking about.
I'm talking too long.
Yeah, wrap it up. Wait, what other stuff you got? It's time to go. It's the end of the podcast.
Oh man,
I know. Do you have any games to play or whatever?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I might have had something else to say.
All right. Well, we can always talk about it next week. How about this? I'm going to start the end bit of the show, and give all the info bits and stuff. If you come up with something, you just holler out and let me know. Okay. So thank you.
Oh, I remember.
My God.
Did you notice? Did you notice that when Troy sits in the chair?
Oh, comfy.
That was totally a reference to Trip Tucker, like fixing up Archer's chair.
I think it was.
And she didn't know how to open the door because it didn't have an auto.
Yeah, she had to use the button. Although previously Riker was shown just walking through walls.
Yeah,
except
right.
that he had to duck under a bulkhead.
It's because
so he wouldn't hit his head.
It's because he had
objective mode,
which is like no clipping in Doom. Did you ever play Doom and put on no clipping mode?
Yeah. Okay. No clipping. No more clips. No more music. No more Star Trek. We're done.
Sound like my 9th grade teacher.
We will soon find out whether this is our most or least listened to episode. I think it's going to be one or the other.
Maybe a little.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If not, hey, give us a chance. Give us a chance next week. You never know. Might get better. We do not know what we're discussing next week yet, but we will feed this episode. We will feed this episode into Dan's bespoke podcast topic selection algorithm, and it will spit out a list of suggestions for us. I think,
and the bugs.
I think probably good bet it's going to be Voyager. Not necessarily, but good bet because we're kind of due for a Voyager. Maybe we'll do some Prodigy sometime soon. We'll get to all of that. But keep an eye on our social media or our website to find out which episode we'll be discussing next week. Our website is www.itsgotstartrek.com.
Fried catfish with hush puppy.
Our social media is at It's Got Star Trek.
There's just one other thing I need to tell you.
At most of the
you
social...
can all go straight to hell.
At It's Got Star Trek, at most of the social media places you'd expect.
Can you believe it?
That's that. If you want to send in a voicemail message like Isaac or Jen did this week, you can go to
spectral micrometer to see it's a fabrication.
itsgotstartrek.com/record. We make it super easy for you. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd prefer to send us an email, you can get us at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com. So until next week, that's it from us.
Computer freeze program.
We'll talk to you later.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Goodbye.
Can you spare one of those carrots?
They're not peeled yet.
That's okay.